where to begin? You're likely somebody who has viewed our live podcasts or listened to our podcasts, the album Concept Hour Side A or Side B, and you probably know by now about the 50 States project that we've been working on, something that Sufjan Stevens never finished. And you know that we have been talking about pretty much every state of the Union and the music that comes from it. We've been doing playlists that are supposed to be based on what these states are about, or at least that's ostensibly what we thought Sufjan Stevens wanted to do. We've been doing this for a bit over a year now, and through our process, we actually met Joey Clift, a comedy writer who also did a project called Our 50 States Project. He gathered musicians together to create a collaborative playlist for each state, and they really covered a lot of ground very quickly in 2020.
The only thing you need to know in West Virginia is we got coal and we want to put it in you, not just as fuel, but also as food. And guess what, baby? It even tastes good.
During this process and up until right about now, we had really not considered the political and historical significance of the 50 States Project that is the United States. In particular, the brutal genocidal campaign of colonization that went from the east to the west across this continent, which was originally called Turtle Island, before Europeans came to destroy the cities and civilizations that already existed here. The legacies of that campaign are still deeply felt today, and there are struggles still over land, water, and air, and the rights of people to use those resources. We similarly have had only a handful of times where we have highlighted Native Americans and Canadians in media, such as our guest tonight, who is an enrolled member of the Cowlitz Indian tribe in Washington State, or the Halusi Nation from Ottawa, Canada, members of the 6 First Nations of the Grand River Council, or the Haudenosaunee. So after thinking about it for a bit, we decided we wanted to do a land acknowledgement, which has become quite common recently. But the problem with land acknowledgements is that they often feel rote and cold and obligatory. And some of these project the notion that this land that was once yours is now ours. And we didn't really want to do anything in that vein, and we didn't want to do anything inauthentic. And we wanted to go beyond the land acknowledgement itself, because we do kind of agree with some of these criticisms. So after thinking about it for a bit, we decided that instead of just acknowledging land, we would also try to point you towards some educational resources. But before I go into that, I will actually tell you a little bit about Madison, Wisconsin, and some things that I've learned very recently through my own education and through watching some YouTube videos, which we'll also put the links for in the description. So first, in Wisconsin, we acknowledge that we are streaming on computers from the land of Dejope, meaning in their language, the Four Lakes, which was originally occupied by the Ho-Chunk. Most of Madison, Wisconsin resides on top of sacred burial mounds of the Ho-Chunk people, and the resources of the area were also variously shared by the Ho-Chunk with the Hikapoi, the Osheti-Sakowin, the Sauk and Meskwaki, Miami, and Peoria. It is important to note that until I decided to make this video, I did not know that the first white settlers who became Madisonians, after an 1832 treaty removed the Ho-Chunk people, defiled the mounds of the Ho-Chunk as an after-church activity on Sunday mornings. I also did not know that the Whitehorse family still has property near Stoughton Road, or that Ahuska Park used to be the property of the White Wing family. Until very recently, I did not understand that Ho-Chunk people who remained in Madison faced discrimination and violence, if not the violence of digging the graves of their ancestors, like literal street violence. I must thank Samantha Skenandore of the Ho-Chunk Nation and her talk given at the Distinguished Lecturer Series at the Memorial Union. There's a link to that in the description. Today, many Ho-Chunk reside in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, and many still live in Madison as well. They have a community center called Dejope Hosira, which provides counseling, a space for elders to convene, and is multicultural in its outlook and invites any Madisonian inside its doors. Today, there are 11 other First Nations that reside in Wisconsin, including the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, Brothertown Indian Nation, Forest County Potawatomi Community, LaCourte Orioles Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, Lac du Flambeau Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, Oneida Tribe of Indians of Wisconsin, Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, Sokeagon Chippewa Community, St. Croix Chippewa Community, and the Stockbridge Munsee Band of Mohican Indians. As far as the Cowlitz Indian tribe is concerned, I learned through investigating that the Cowlitz people resisted relocation and refused to sign a treaty for their removal in 1855 in Washington, with their land stolen despite this, and were only recently diplomatically recognized in the United States by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in 2000. This is the official introduction to the Cowlitz Indian tribe from their website. The legacy of an ancient people in southwest Washington is rich with its descendants who manage a growing portfolio of health, education, scientific research, housing, transportation, development, elder care, conservation, and legal issues. The Cowlitz tribe is a growing force in community building in what are now Clark, Cowlitz, Lewis, and parts of Pierce, Skamania, and Wahkiakum counties, a vast territory occupied by numerous Cowlitz villages prior to non-Cowlitz exploration and seizure. Today, an elected tribal council is composed of professionals adept at managing multiple programs and projects. Tribal members engage in a rich cultural practice of old Cowlitz lifeways such as the smelt, salmon, and river ceremonies. They join coastal tribes in canoe journeys on major waterways. They drum and sing at ceremonies throughout the year as called upon for funerals, naming ceremonies, healings, and celebration. The Cowlitz powwow is one of the largest in southern Washington. The Cowlitz tribe is a significant employer and contributor to local economies. When the federal government recognized the tribe officially in 2000, the tribe thought of it as a belated acknowledgement of a cohesive culture spanning centuries. Without cover of federal status, tribal members overcame tremendous obstacles during millennium changes, looking firm to their remembered past as one of the largest and richest tribes in what is now Washington state. Over time, tribal employees leveraged a few grants into a multi-million-dollar operation that has successfully produced a modern health clinic in Longview, health services in Tukwila and Vancouver, and viable housing units at its St. Mary's complex near Toledo. The St. Mary's school site, part of the Cowlitz Mission Complex established by a Catholic order in the 1800s to bring Christianity to the natives of the early territory, is now owned by the Cowlitz tribe. Today in Washington, there are 29 federally recognized tribes, and they are Chehalis, Colville, Cowlitz, Ho, Jamestown, Skalalam, Kalispel, Lower Elwha, Kalalam, Lummi, Makah, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Nooksack, Port Gamble, Skalalam, Puyallup, Quileute, Quinault, Samish, Sauk, Suiattle, Shoalwater Bay, Skokomish, Snoqualmie, Spokane, Squaxin Island, Stillaguamish, Suquamish, Swinomish, Tulalip, Upper Skagit, and Yakima. So I know that was a lot to take in, but we implore our viewership, our listenership, to really dig in and try to learn more about the history of colonization and its effects up to the present. I want to throw out some terms you should try to learn about: relocation and removal, assimilation, doctrine of discovery, self-determination, and survivance. That last one is a portmanteau of survival and resistance. Another step you should take is to go to native-land.ca, link in description again, and look at the overlapping claims and sessions and learn about the tribal nations that exist and have existed in your own part of the country. You'll find that often there is overlap because the European notion of borders and property is truly incongruent with the complexity of indigenous ways of thinking about resources like water, animals, and plant life. Exploring how tribal nations continue to negotiate their claims in these arenas will broaden your understanding of how they lived and continue to live. Also, I think you should seriously consider checking out the works of Philip J. Deloria, Standing Rock Sioux. He wrote this book called Indians in Unexpected Places, and it's all about representation. You should also check out the work of Nick Estes. He is Ochete Shakowin. He's another author, educator, and activist who has frequently written about the struggles at Wounded Knee and Standing Rock. And I think that you should really educate yourself about ongoing struggles that aren't necessarily written about every single day, but things like the Enbridge 5 pipeline and the Keystone XL pipeline and all of these different pipelines that are going over, in some cases, native land and sacred waterways. And speaking of, after you take the time to read and learn about the ongoing issues over land and rights in the Native American community, I think you can take steps to fight for something better. Bare minimum would be to vote for legislators, city councilors, and the like, who are all for water protection, environmental protection, and giving land back. And that reminds me, there's also a movement recently called Land Back, which is all about protesting for the return of lands that have gone into other hands through either legal or illegal methods. It's basically all about giving back land that has been taken from the tribal nations of the United States. And lastly, you should go home and spread the word to white family and friends that tribal nations are not in the past tense, and we are living with the continuing legacy of colonialism. And these things, this tension has not gone away. I think that just knowing that we're living in a world that is still impacted by all of that crap from our history is really important to know, and it's something that we need to spread around. And finally, I just think that you should, for the rest of the time, have some fun and listen to some music with us. And we're not going to get super serious the whole time, but just keep in mind that uncomfortable conversations are a necessary part of this healing process, especially for white people like me. Thank you.